Hey, hello, welcome back to Teaology. I'm Zoe and today we are drinking an English breakfast tea because I didn't know what tea was in that random bag that I got from the supermarket. It wasn't random, but at the supermarket we've got like a tea like pick and mix section, and so you write the code of the tea on the back and on like the thing, and you can get it from the pick and mix essentially. And I wasn't sure which tea it was that was in the bag, and it turns out it was English breakfast. So here we are with an English breakfast tea. I would have taken you to make it and brew it with me, except I wanted to spend as little time in the kitchen as possible because it is so cold, and it is so cold in the kitchen. But the kitchen is like its own little separate room, and it gets so cold in there. I don't want to spend more time in there than I have to. So, and today we're talking about AI. And this is a conversation and topic that's been in the media a lot recently. In some ways it could feel like really old news because it was in there like 3 weeks ago. But like AI is still a real life thing for navigating like how, particularly when we're looking at like language models and that sort of thing. So there are lots of types of AI and machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of AI, but AI is a thing that can feel kind of new, like we've just hit a new wave of it, and it's like, oh my goodness, suddenly everybody's talking about AI and it's everywhere and it's taking over the world and it's getting rid of jobs, it's ruining the education system, all of that sort of thing. And there's a lot of fear-mongering and scaring that's going on. Something to think about with AI is that when we've been talking about it a lot in the media, we've been using it in a very specific, narrow way, and we're talking about what's called natural language processing AI, and that is particularly to do with text generation, so generating texts, and question answering, so the ability to generate text and answer questions. That's like one specific subset of what AI is and what AI can do. But because we're talking about it in that, like it's this whole new thing, people are going, AI is this whole new thing, and it's not. We've been using huge parts of AI, lots of people's day-to-day life, and at least increasingly used in the population of the world, like text-to-speech and speech-to-text are AI. Image recognition is AI. Do some sort of planning for you. There have been internet tools that have been able to do that for a while, and they just didn't call what they were doing AI, when now we're calling what, like ChatGPT and GPT-4 and the Bing Microsoft one, I don't know what that's called, we're calling that AI. But all of them is AI. People ask questions sometimes of like, is it human? Is it doing human functioning? Like, can AI take over? And you know, you start getting into the conversations of like, AI is gonna take over the world, and that's a pretty broad generic statement. Like, what would it mean for AI to actually take over the world? What do we mean by that? What are we thinking of that? But like, speech to text and text to speech are not new things. They've been around for a few years now. Understanding that can go, okay, it's actually something I am familiar with, and this is just a new expression of it. So just wanted to clear the water on that, and I don't say that to scare you, but also you have more information at your disposal that you can figure out what to do with. But in terms of replacement and the AI takeover and that sort of thing, what is a theological response to that? What is a response that would be grounded in the Bible and history and our understanding of humanity and what it means to be human? Biblical Christian faith oriented response, there won't be an AI takeover unless it's in God's plan, is what would it mean for AI to take over? And it would be like, yeah, there's a level where it could get control of our media, and a really key thing to remember with AI is that there has to be a person who codes it. And while you can get to a point where it's sort of self-generative to an extent, someone has to do stuff in the first place. And there are codes of ethics and things that engineers are meant to uphold as a part of the international software engineering development, that sort of thing. So like there are ways where it can be used badly, and people can code things that can be destructive and damaging, but that's been happening for years already. Like, that's not something new where people code things and create things that are harmful. But there's literally just a movie that came out about it called Oppenheimer. Not new. While this might feel more subversive because it's the internet, we also all know that the internet can cause huge amounts of damage. If we just look at the past 3 years and the separation that ideas that people have gotten solely from, and mostly, not solely, but mostly being fed and reinforced through internet sources, like, we know that it's not always been good. So I think we can take that level of perspective in as well, that this is something that's created by people and that people put out into the world. And so we need to hold this intention that this is a thing people are doing and being a part of and partaking in, and that people are creating. In the same way that music is a creation, so is software. In the same way that a book is a creation, so is all software. Software is an act of creativity from people, and it is a way that we can enact, and that some people are really good at enacting the gift of God in that creative way. But thinking AI is suddenly going to take over, is that something that will be, it's a far away thing. We're not close to it. Yeah, there have been new strides made. We're a long way before there will be any way for AI to fully take over. It is not good enough. And while it might get good enough and better in some ways, since a lot of them are drawing their sources from the internet or plagiarized work or that sort of thing, it's not going to be able to do everything. Because, well, we say all of human knowledge is on the internet, it's not. There's a lot of human knowledge on the internet, but there's stuff that's just innate to people that isn't there. And part of it is, will AI replace people fully? And part of it might be you have to learn how to work with AI. We can use it as a tool in the same way that we use Google as a tool, in the same way that, 30-40 years ago, the internet came out. People had to learn how to use it as a tool and what it meant, and they had to learn how to use it. We're just doing that same thing again with AI. So don't stress and be worried about it, but instead look at it as an opportunity to learn how to use something new. What are the ways it's helpful? What are the ways it's unhelpful? And how can we work with it as it changes instead of against it? And how can we use it as a tool instead of being used by it for its own purposes? And that being it, the people creating the AI. We can also use it and be a part of the process. But in the sense of it taking over and it just actually becoming people, I would ask the question of, what does it even mean to be human? We call it AI, meaning artificial intelligence. And that is only one part, intelligence, of what it means to be human, especially from the Christian biblical perspective. Humanity is so much more than just what I think and what I know. Because a baby who knows very little is still human. A person in a vegetative state is still human. If you were to say they weren't, there would just be something in you that is like, that doesn't feel right. There's just something wrong about that. And understanding and questioning why do you think there's something wrong can help lead you to deeper understanding of humanity and what it means to be human. With people and what it means to be human, there is just a simple fundamental level that we don't know and can't know about what it means to be human. We don't know everything. We can't know everything about humanity and what it means to be human. And so therefore we can't code something that would be able to be human fully. This is why you have what's called the uncanny valley experience, where when you look at something that's almost human but not quite, they just know that something's off about it. The uncanny valley effect. I've got a couple of pictures here of things that people experience, that uncanny valley where you just know it's not human. And there's this level where we just don't know and can't know fully what it means to be human. There is a level of incomprehensibility in humanity. We can never know everything. We are limited beings, and because we are created in the image of the eternal God, there is that piece of eternity in us that we can never know. We can't ever know all of ourselves because we'll always be blinded by our own perspective. And it's huge. It's very complicated, humanity. We don't know all of it. so we can't code it into a program because we don't even understand what we're trying to code. Second thing is that we are more than our intelligence. I've kind of already alluded and said this, but you're more than what we think, we're more than what we know, we're more than what we believe. We are a whole part of whole beings. And there are lots of things involved in the human experience that don't rely on our intelligence. Our breathing and the way we see and the way we walk and all of that is a part of a human experience. Different animals might also partake in parts of that, but there is a way that all of these things happen that is a little bit more distinctive to humans than to other animals. You know, we're more than just our intelligence, we're also emotional beings, we're more than just our reason. Our ability for faith and capacity for love are huge parts. Our ability to be self-sacrificial is hard to code and explain what that means and how you show the nuances between how to be self-sacrificial and what that means and how do you do it in a way that actually uplifts both parties. And then the third thing is that to be human is to be embodied, and that essentially means that we are inside a body, that we are contained in this like physical space that is me or you. And so to be embodied, there are all of these parts, and a huge part of humans being embodied is the organic compounds that make us up and the microbiomes and bacteria that live in us. That we are an ecosystem in ourselves, embodied, that breathing, seeing, touch, smell, all of our senses are a part of it. Our nociception, our ability to feel things and also to feel pain, to feel hunger, to have new thoughts and create genuinely new ideas is also quite human, and that is something that's really hard to code. And whether AI can get to the point where it comes up with something that's genuinely new and not just information collation is really hard to say, because there is a distinctive thing with our thoughts and the way that we do things where it's more than just information collation. We barely understand how the brain works. How are we going to code something to be able to do that? We can code AI to do bits and pieces of it, and we can code AI to do express parts, but we can't make it do everything. And like even for speech to text, a person is required, because where is it getting the sound of a voice from? How does it know how to say the words? Because it has been coded to say them. It is playing the words of somebody else. Like there is a woman who recorded the voice for Siri. So some key takeaways and key things to keep in mind. AI taking over, not something that will probably happen anytime soon because of what it would even mean for AI to fully take over. I would say there are reasonable concerns about AI. There are concerns about the increased amount of misinformation and disinformation and critical thinking and critical analysis. That's all completely reasonable to be for people to be concerned about. But those being spun so that they create fear is not good. You can be concerned and you can want to figure out the best way to use something, and that can drive you to want to make the world a better place. But fear doesn't. Fear can bar us and lock us in. And so understanding a little bit more about AI and going, actually, this isn't a threat to me. This is something that we are still in control of, can really help us understand. And that it doesn't even matter if we are in control of it ultimately. What matters is that God is in control of it ultimately. I don't know if AI can be human, because there is a part of humanity that it can never access, because a huge part of what it means to be human is to be created in the image of God, not in the image of man, which AI is. And that our humanity is given to us by God and protected by God, and AI can never have access to that. Yeah, I hope that you have found this helpful. If you have more questions about AI or that sort of thing, I know a bit, I've done quite a bit of thinking about it and know some people that work in that field. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below, particularly in a theological space, and I can pass you on some good resources. Or yeah, I will see you all next time. Feel free to comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. Bye!